Hello guys, and welcome to another video. And I feel like this stack that, while sitting, is my height, kind of lets me know that I need to start doing these videos monthly. So going forward, you will be seeing a monthly what I read video. I didn't read all that much in the first 2 quarters of the year, but as you can see, I have a mountain of books next to me that I have read this quarter, and I don't even own all of the books I read this quarter, so there's 2 DNFs in here though, so we'll go through those. We're just gonna go into it. This is April, May, June, what I read. Me and my best friend Andrea do have a book club. It is linked down below. It's no obligations. If you join and you never read the book and you're just there for the hangs, that's fine. But hey, we're just gonna jump into it. And the first book I read this month, I actually don't have physically. I don't plan to own physically, and it was called 3 Swedish Mountain Men by Lily Gold. It was a reverse harem romance, and a YouTuber that I watch, Ellen and Catherine, had read it and said it was like interesting, and I was like, I need to know the tea on this book. And it was fine. It was a smutty 1 girl, 3 guys in a romance type situation, stranded in Sweden on a mountain. Self-explanatory is what it is. Don't really need to go much more into it. I gave it 3 stars. It was fine. Also, let me pull up my story graph so that we can go over the vibes of each month before we continue onward. Simply, month of April. I will screenshot this for y'all to see better, but I'll have Chris put it up here. In the month of April, we read 7 books. I don't think that's counting the DNFs, but we completed 7 books. I read 2,413 pages. It was the worst out of the 3 months we're going over. The #1 overarching theme with 4 books fell under funny, as well as 4 books fell under emotional. The next highest was tense, with 3 tense books. Some lighthearted, a little bit of hopeful, and then the 3 smallest categories were mysterious, challenging, and adventurous. Another book I will get to when I get there. I don't remember. I remember I had to like edit it for something, and I think I edited the rating from a 4 to a 5, and I don't know if I talked about it in the last video, but I loved it, so we'll talk about it again anyway. But anywho, that was the first book. The next book I read 50% of was Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. This was our book club pick for April, and I think 2 people finished it. Me and Andrea both DNF'd it. This is actually was Andrea's physical copy. I didn't buy a physical copy, but it's in our stack of get rid of books, our community stack of get rid of books, because we plan on doing on our combined channel, which is BG Girlies, a like little free library hunt. So we needed a bunch of books we didn't want, but that was this one. I read about half of it. I found this to be one of the most boring books I've ever read in my entire life. I don't read fantasy though, so I thought maybe that was the issue, but plenty of people in our book club, including Andrea, read a lot of fantasy. It's one of their preferred genres, and nobody liked it. I don't understand the high rating of this. If you liked this book, please tell me what there was to like about it, because I'm struggling to find a single thing. This isn't even the pretty cover. If this was like the hardback cover, I'd be like, okay, I could at least see that it's like pretty. No, everything about that, bad. Don't recommend. After that, we went right into a banger, and also my shelves feel so empty because I read so many books this month, but and like all of them, it's like my whole yellow shelf. The next book I read was Home Before Dark by Riley Sager, and I loved this book. I think this is my 2nd favorite of all his books. My first is The Only One Left, and I believe this one is #2 for me. It's about a girl named Maggie, and yeah, so this one is about a girl named Maggie, and her family had moved into this like haunted house when she was a kid, and they left in the middle of the night, and her dad wrote a book about it, and the book has like basically haunted her whole life, and she wants to like figure out, like get to the bottom of what happened in this house. The locals are not nice to her because they don't like her dad. Now her dad made money off of like what happened there, but this book was so spooky. I remember reading this and being like, I need to put her down because I'm gonna have nightmares. So it's like literally the only reason it took me multiple days to read this, but it was so good. I ate it up, loved it, highly recommend. Also tossing in some Encyclopedia Fairies out of the way because I'm going to stack these up by color so that I can put them away easily. Next book I read was The Sevene Slip by Ashley Poston. I'm actually reading my second Ashley Poston book right now, a novel love story. But this is about Clementine, and basically Clementine inherits an apartment from her aunt after her aunt passes away, and her aunt always said that her books are magical realism, so you have to go into them just accepting that it's going to be magical realism. Her aunt says that the apartment is magical and that like you'll be brought 7 years like in the past, or like there's like a 7-year time slip type thing happening, and Clementine goes 7 years into the past and meets a guy and then is trying to meet him in the present time, and it's super cute. I did really enjoy this one. Let's see what I rated. I think I gave it a 4, or I gave it a 4.5 and rounded it up to a 5. There were parts that I thought dragged on a little bit, and it was very insta-love, so if you aren't into insta-love, that might bother you. But overall, I think this was an incredible book, and I do recommend to anybody who likes romance. Then after that, I did read Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. Andrea was reading this. We were on a trip to Dallas together, and so I was like, let's just buddy read it. I'll read it as well. Love that like it's blue with the yellow. This is about Alexis, and she is like a richy girl, and she is a doctor, and she's dating this other doctor-y guy, and he is a piece of shit, abusive loser, and they end up breaking up. Her family sucks. They're on his side and like not taking her side or listening to even like what happened during the whole thing, and then she ends up like meeting a small town guy, and like it's about trying to figure out how their worlds can connect. And now you guys, battery's gonna die, so I will BRB. But I gave this 4 stars, highly recommend. Ugh. Okay friends, next up I read Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll, and I gave this book 4 stars. This book, first off, I was reading it on Kindle, and like there are these breaks in between chapters that don't count as like a new chapter on the Kindle, and so the first chapter was like an hour long, and that was jarring. But this book is about multiple people. It's in multiple points of view, Pamela and Ruth, and it's basically a retelling almost of like the Ted Bundy case, but from the victim's point of view. And it never once in the entire story names Ted Bundy. They just call him the defendant, the guy, the man, never names him, because we don't give power to losers. And it was just really eye-opening and just written so beautifully about how like women, especially in those times, just weren't believed and nobody gave a shit. And it was really sad and heartbreaking, and I recommend this to absolutely everybody. I think everybody should read this. It was so good. There were parts that did kind of drag a little bit though. That's why I didn't give it the full 5 stars, but I super highly recommend Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll. Then I read our next book club pick, which was Funny Story by Emily Henry. This was our June book club pick, but I read it like in one day basically. And oh my god, this is my favorite Emily Henry book that there ever was. I love this blue color, and then like the hardback is pink. It's so pretty. This is about Daphne and Miles, and basically Daphne was dating this dude, and Miles was dating this dude named Peter, and Miles was dating this girl named Petra. Horrible name. But they essentially, Peter and Petra were childhood best friends, and they go together on his bachelor trip, and then he comes back and tells Daphne, you know what, I'm actually in love with Petra, we're breaking up. You have like a week to get out of here. And her and Miles decide to become roommates and then fake date to get back at them. And it was just so good. So good, so funny. I loved everything about this. This is my #1 favorite above beach read Emily Henry book, and I highly recommend. Then we had a little bit of a disappointment of a book. This book is so pretty though, it's so annoying. It's called The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell. I thought I liked Lisa Jewell, but I've read 3 books by her now, and I loved one of them, and I thought the other 2 were just okay. So basically this book I gave 3 stars. It is about, I'm gonna be honest, I just read the back of this and I have not a single memory of this book. It's apparently about a girl named Libby who returns home from work to find the letter that she's been waiting for 25 years. She rips it open with one driving thought: I'm finally going to know who I am. She learns not only the identity of her birth parents, but also that she is the sole inheritor of their abandoned mansion on the bank of the Thames. Everything in Libby's life is about to change, but what she can't possibly know is that the others have been waiting for this day as well. Oh, yes, I remember. Basically, she has, like, these other... No, I don't know if that was this book. I don't remember this book. I gave it 3 stars. We're moving forward, okay? Let me look at the reviews because this is really bothering me. Yeah, I don't know. We're just moving on. We're just moving on. That's all we can do. Next, we had another 4-star rating of, we're moving into the May books. Somewhere in April, yes, here it is. April, I also read Ask for Andrea by Noelle Ely. And I gave that book 5 stars. That is, I think, currently my favorite book I have read this year. It was bone-chilling, mesmerizing, heartbreaking. Everything about it was perfection. It's essentially about these 3 different girls who were all killed by a serial killer, and you're following their stories after they are dead and about like their ghosts and their spirits, and like you're going reflecting back on what happened and what led to them like being alone with this person. One of the girls is haunting him and like his family, trying to stop him from hurting anybody else, and like to try to clue into his family that like he's a bad guy. One of the girls won't leave her body, and one of the other girls is like following the police around trying to get them to like figure it out. But like, it's literally giving me chills thinking about it. That book was so good. Highly, 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 highly recommend. So now we'll move into May. The first thing I read in May was The True Love Experiment by Christina Lauren, and I did give this book 4 stars. I got this from Book of the Month, and I no longer subscribe to Book of the Month, but I hate when Book of the Month does this, where it's like the second book in an independent standalone. Granted, you could read it independently. I did not read the first book, don't plan to, but it's just like annoying to me. But this was about Felicity, who goes by Fizzy, and she's a romance novelist, and she's kind of like having she has like a writing block, and she can't figure out which ones to write about. And her best friend's husband has this like app to like find true love, and there's this guy Connor, and he is a documentary filmmaker, and he's going to be making kind of like a dating reality show with this app, and he wants Fizzy to be the main like girl. It's kind of like a bachelorette type show, and I love shitty reality TV, so I love that aspect. I thought this book was so fun. It's like a forced proximity love type thing. We love to see it. We love Christina Lauren. She is my favorite romance novel writer. It was great. Then we read The Only Survivors by Megan Miranda. I gave this book 3 stars. This was about, a group of students who went on a school trip, and their buses crashed, and only a select amount of people, 7 people, survived. And like every summer they go and to this house and like have like a week together to like think about things, and then other people from like the survivors have died by suicide or like overdose, addiction type things. And basically something feels off this year. Cassidy, the one you're mainly following, is the first to notice, and she is trying to figure out what happened basically, and a lot of them don't really remember or won't talk about what happened that night. Bada bing, bada boom. It was like fine. I'm not mad that I read it, but I wouldn't go out of my way suggesting it. The next book I read was a 4-star, and that is The Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. I really like Carly Fortune. I'd say she's probably my second favorite. My favorite romance authors probably goes 1, Christina Lauren, 2nd, Carly Fortune, 3rd, Emily Henry. I've enjoyed all of her books. I know people gave Meet Me at the Lake a lot of shit, but I have liked all of her books. I gave this 4-star, and these covers are just like everything. This is about a girl, Lucy, and she and her bestie pal, Bridget, go on these summer trips to Prince Edward Island, referred to PEI throughout the book, which is where Bridget grew up. In their first summer that they were going there, it's a split timeline. The first summer that they go there, Lucy hooks up with a guy who ends up being Bridget's brother. Bridget had 2 rules, and one of them was like, don't fall in love with her brother. So like they pretend like it never happened, and then they're going back and forth in timelines of current time and their previous summers at PEI. And Bridget is getting married soon, and she suddenly flees back to PEI and tells Lucy, you need to come here now, and is like refusing to talk about what happened or why she left. And I just thought it was really good. I liked the characters. I had a fun time reading it. I read it fairly quick, literally in 2 days. So yeah, highly recommend. Next book that I read was When I Am Dead by Hannah Morrissey. I gave this book 4 stars. This is, again, Black Harbor, book number 3. I don't know. I read it by itself, okay? This is about like 2 parents, and one of them is a medical examiner and one of them is a police officer, and their daughter disappears shortly after her daughter's best friend was murdered. So they're basically going through trying to find their daughter, and yeah, it was very interesting, kept me on my toes. I really enjoyed it. Ended up giving it 4 stars, and I would be interested to check out more books by Hannah. Then I read Running Wild by K.A. Tucker. This was the last book in the Wild series. I read the other 2 books and the novella, so all 3 of the books, and I gave this 4 stars. This one, you are following Marie, and she is the veterinarian that you meet in the other series and kind of hate. And it took a minute to stop hating her in this book, honestly, but then you end up falling in love with her and what she's going through. If you are a dog person, pick this up. It's big on sled dogging, dog sledding, that situation, people doing sled dog races, okay? It was like a big part of this book, and I love dogs, so I loved that part, and it was just really good. I know K.A. Tucker has a book that recently came out, and I have it on my like TBR like want to buy list. Highly recommend this whole series, except I've heard the only people I've seen go into this series and not like it are people who've gone into the Wild series thinking it's going to be a romance. It has a romantic undertone in all of the books, but I would say first and foremost it is just a women's fiction book. Diet Coke break, baby. It's so funny because I can like vastly remember what I was doing. Like these 3 books I read when my sister was visiting. Like I just remember distinctly. And then I read The Stranger Upstairs by Lisa Matlin, and I gave this 3 stars. Basically this is about 3 siblings, and one of them finds out that she's pregnant. Her husband lost his job. I think The Family Upstairs and The Stranger Upstairs. I'm getting these 2 so confused. Nope, this is a whole different one. This is about a girl named Sarah, and basically she gets a deal on a house where somebody was murdered, and she's trying to renovate the house, and everybody in the town is like pissed that she's doing it. And it's basically just trying to find out what keeps happening to anybody who lives and or buys this house. The cover is absolutely stunning. I loved that part about it the most, but I ended up only giving the book 3 stars, and I feel like any book I give 3 stars I don't really have much of a memory about, so we're gonna move on. The next 2 books I read while I was at a board game convention. The first one is Adelaide by Genevieve Wheeler, and I do have this next chunk of books are part of a reading vlog, my first ever Instagram Chooses My Reads vlog. This book is called Adelaide, and it is by Genevieve Wheeler, and the main character's name is Adelaide. And basically you're going through her life, and like she has dealing like severely with mental health problems and is in a very toxic abusive relationship, and you're basically just going through her story. It starts out, this is not a spoiler, it is chapter 1, that she is in the hospital after trying to take her life, and you're reflecting back as to what got her there, and it was heart-wrenching. I highlighted so many stuff on my Kindle. I want to like bring out my Kindle and highlight it physically. This book was just so emotional, so good, and I think everybody should read that one as well. Highly recommend. Then I read Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose, and this is like the most epic cover of a book ever. And this is about 3 siblings. I also got the one that has the like sprayed edges, you know, do what you gotta do. There is Beth, there is Michael, and Nicole. Beth, Michael, and Nicole, they're all siblings, and their dad went missing years ago. Well, not missing, he kind of just walked out on their family, and they presume, some of them think he's missing, some of them think he just left. It depends who you ask. And their mom's been really sick, and the one daughter, Beth, has been taking care of the mom, and basically, this looks so creepy if I like put my hand here and then take it off. So the mom dies, and all of the other siblings, this is so funny, it has, Ashley Flowers, isn't that from the One True Crime podcast? I'm getting distracted, but their mom dies, they're going through things, and they found like find family videos, they put the videos in, and they see something terrible that they shouldn't see on the video, and then it's like, what should they do with this information, and what happened really? This book was very interesting, very fast-paced. I think I would recommend this book to anybody, but I guessed the ending at 18% of the book. Me and Andrea were sitting there in our beds, and I'm just reading, and I was like, okay, here's my theory I'm gonna tell you, so that if this is what happens, like, it's a fact that I guessed it. So I told her, and then I finished it the next day when I got home, and I was like, so yeah, that's what happened. So because of, if I guess a thriller before 50%, it is like my own mental rule that I will not give it more than 3 stars. You have to at least have me going until 50%. So because of that, I rated this book lower. And that is Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose. Then I read our June Book of the Month book, which was The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren, and I gave it 4 stars. I do not have that book physically. I do want it physically because I really enjoyed it. And in it, the main characters' names are Anna and West. And Anna and West, Anna was friends with West's brother in college, and Anna and West end up rooming together, being roommates, and it's like this whole thing. They end up having to get married to do it, and then they, per what Anna thought, got divorced, but secretly they never got divorced because Liam needs to have been married for 5 years to get a fat chunk of money from his inheritance because his family owns a grocery chain. And basically, he calls, his sibling is getting married, and he calls Anna up out of nowhere. She had just lost her job, her life's falling apart, and is like, listen, I think he showed up at her house. X, Y, and Z is happening. I need you to go on this like fancy private jet, private island vacation with me and pretend to be my wife, and I'll give you money. And yeah, it was really good, really cute. Highly suggest. This next book I'm actually really excited to talk to you guys about, and it is called Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera, because I was not excited to read this book, and I absolutely ate her up. I gave this book 4 stars. I really liked it. I am learning that I really enjoy a thriller book with a podcast element. I thought it was so fun. This one is about Lucy, another Lucy, and she had a best friend named Savvy, and they were both like the Golden Girls, like great people in high school, or in college, or no, they became friends after high school when they were adults. And one day, Savvy ends up murdered, and Lucy is found covered in Savvy's blood, and everybody assumes Lucy did it, but Lucy has amnesia and does not remember what happened, essentially. So she moves away, starts dating this guy, blah, and then this podcaster, Ben, comes into town and is like trying to figure out what happened to Savvy. And when this happens, she gets fired from her job, her boyfriend starts acting weird, her grandma calls her up and is like, we're having a surprise birthday for me. Her grandma was the best character. You need to come to town. So she goes into town and ends up talking to the podcaster, and it's like this whole thing of figuring out what actually happened to Savvy. And I did guess the ending, but not till like 60% in, so I was happy with that. Gave it 4 stars, really enjoyed it, and highly recommend that one for a thriller. Then I quickly read this graphic novel, which was called 12th Grade Night by a plethora of people, and it was like a cute little LGBTQAI queer high school romance situation. Super cute, super fast. Don't really have a ton to say about it. Vi came to Arden High for a fresh start, and yeah, it was cute, it was good. I wouldn't like super recommend it to anybody, but like it was fine. Then we read In 5 Years by Rebecca Searle, and this book really cemented that I love this author. I read One Italian Summer by her. She also writes magical realism. This book broke me in half. I cried, I laughed. It was so good. It is about Danny, and she has like a over-the-top, crazy, full of life best friend, Bella, and Danny is very like type A and Bella's very type B, and Bella's got like all this money and is just flaunt, like going around the world doing all the things, and Danny is like working constantly, has like, she's been like engaged to this guy for years, won't set a date, and then like something's gonna fall. And then one day she wakes up in a different apartment with a ring on her finger, a different man she doesn't know, and has no idea what's going on, and then goes back to sleep and wakes up back in reality, and then spends 5 years trying to figure out what that was about. And it's just a heartbreaking story. It like just rips you in half in the best way possible. Could not recommend this enough. Could not recommend either of the books that I read by Miss Rebecca Moore. Next, we have another book that is swiftly leaving my house, and that is called No One Can Know by Kate Alice Marshall. I thought this book sucked. I gave it 2 stars. 3 sisters, 2 murders, and too many secrets to count. There are these 3 sisters. One of them's pregnant, and so she and her husband loses his job, and they have to like move into the family's house basically. And her other 2 sisters she's trying to get a hold of because they all share the house, and trying to figure out what ended up happening. It was just all so stupid, and I hated it, and I don't recommend this book. I gave it 2 stars. I did not also like the other Kate Alice Marshall book I read. I think I also gave that 1 or 2 stars. So I think that author is just not for me. And then the last, I missed a book, and it was a thick one for my stack. The last book I read for that reading vlog was Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. This is another book I was dreading because why is it this long? And I stand by that. I do think it was too long, but I gave it 4.5 stars. I ate it up. I read this whole giant fat book in 2 sittings. It is over 500 pages, and it was just so cute. It's about Naomi, and she is like a runaway bride, and she runs into this small town called Knockemout to try to rescue her estranged twin, and she ends up taking care of her sister's daughter, so her niece that she never knew existed. And it's just like a cute romance situation. I don't have like a ton to say about it without like getting into things because it is so long. I feel like anything I say is a spoiler. But she starts falling for Knox. They have like a friends with benefits situation until like, you know, somebody's gonna get feelings. It's always how it goes in these books, but this is worth the hype. It was really good. Then the next chunk of books, the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books were in the opposite of that video, which was reading the books you guys told me not to. So the books that lost the polls. And you guys were right, because I liked these books all significantly less. The first one I read was People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, and I gave this 3 stars. I did not think this was good. It's my, I think, least favorite of every Emily Henry book that I have read, and this is about Poppy and Alex, and they were like best friends. They would go on these trips together. You guys are gonna cut me off. They would go on these trips together every summer until something that you don't know what it was happened that drove them apart, and now they don't talk. They haven't talked in years, and all of a sudden they're starting to talk again, and you're going past a present timeline about what happened, and what happened that they stopped talking was so beyond anticlimactic that it actually pissed me off. Don't recommend. Didn't really like it. Gave it 3 stars. Then the next is like a positive 3 stars. 3 stars can be, I guess, like either or. This book is Survive the Night by Riley Sager. This is my second least favorite book I've ever read by Riley Sager, but I still enjoyed it. It is about a girl named Charlie, and there's like a serial killer called the Campus Killer going around her college, and her roommate slash best friend was killed, and so she's like, I need to go home. I'm done here. And she gets a ride from like this carpool billboard thing with this guy named Josh, but she doesn't really know who he is. For all she knows, he could be the killer. And some parts of it were predictable, which is what made me give it a 3. There were parts that I guessed in the book, but I did overall enjoy the book. Had a good time with it, thought it was fun, and I would recommend that one. Then we read another Emily Henry. So many Emily Henrys in this chunk of books, in this section. This one is Happy Place. I love the hot pink. This I gave 4 stars. This one is about Harriet and Wynn. and they've been a couple since college, and something happened where they are no longer together. They broke up 5 months ago and haven't told their friends, and only Harriet was supposed to go on the trip, but Wynn ended up going because of XYZ. Don't want to get into it, don't want to spoil it. And basically they have to pretend like they're still together, and you're going past to present to figure out what happened and why they broke up. And as somebody who has gone through some of like the more serious things that happened in this book, I could relate to the like way that they reacted to things, though I can understand other people not liking it and not getting why they would act that way if they just simply can't like relate to what's going on, which is fair. Like, Andrea read this and hated it for like those reasons. She's like, I just feel like they should have just talked and none of that would have happened. And I'm like, yeah, agreed, but also I can get why they did it. So I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was pretty good. Not my favorite, but pretty good. This next book, I'm pretty sure I don't have my stamp in. Where is she? Hello? Where is my page embosser? Okay. Oh no, I lied. The next book I read was oh no, I didn't lie. I told the truth. The next book I read was The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. Oh nope, I lied. Favorite romance authors. 1, Christina Lauren. 2, Sarah Adams. 3, Carly Fortune. 4, Emily Henry. So, The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. I gave this book 5 stars. Can't wait to read the second one. This was about Bree and Nathan, and they are bestie pals since high school. He is in the NFL, and she is a dance instructor, has her own dance studio. And they are both secretly in love with each other, and then something happens where they have to fake date, and I love fake dating. It's my favorite trope, and it was just so cute. Everything about it was so good, and I feel like I had read, like, because Happy Place I cheated on giving it a 3.5. I've read so many like mediocre books that I feel like because of that, this was absolutely everything to me. But I super recommend this. I don't give a fuck about football. I hate sports, but I loved that, and I thought it was amazing, period. Then I did read a graphic novel called Roll Call, which by Molly Knox Ostertang. I don't have a copy of it. It was Andrea's. I gave it 5 stars. It's with these 2 friends who, like, in elementary school started playing D&D together, and then in high school they want to like open it up to have new people join the group, and one of them's kind of apprehensive about it, and it was just cute. Okay. The next book I DNF'd was 3 Dark Crowns by Kender Blake. I just hate fantasy. I'm done trying to make fantasy happen, I think. It's just not for me. It was not good. It was so boring. I literally got, I think, like 30% in, and I was just like, I literally don't care about any of this. So that one had to go. Then I read the last book of that book you told me not to read video, and that was The One That Got Away with Murder by Trish Lundy. This is like the 2nd book with like a necklace on the cover. A bloody necklace. This was, I don't hear anybody talking about this, and I thought this book was really good. I gave it 4 stars. It's a YA romance, which I don't mind a YA romance, and it is about this girl Lauren, and something happened, and it's just her and her mom, and something happened, and her and her mom moved away to go move closer to her mom's boyfriend and get her out of town because of the events that happened. You don't learn about the events till the end, so I'm not going to talk about them. But she starts seeing this guy Robbie, and him and his brother basically have a reputation that like anybody they date dies, and everybody thinks that like they're the ones doing it because they are so rich that they are above the law. And you're basically going through her getting like bullied by her soccer team for being friends with these guys because one of the girls who did die was on the soccer team. They're like, you're friends with her murderers, blah, 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 blah. And it was wild. I did not see it coming. It was crazy, and I really, really enjoyed it. Highly, highly recommend. Then I have 2 books that I've read since ending that video. One is Middle of the Night by Riley Sager, and I do have a beautiful, wonderful signed copy. It's my 2nd signed book by him. And this book, y'all, this book, I literally think that this book was more sad than scary. It is essentially about, what's the guy's name? Ethan. Also, the street that this book takes place on is Hemlock Circle, and growing up, my parents are divorced, and we did actively spend a lot of time at my grandma's house, and she lived on Hemlock Circle, so it was really funny to me. But it's about a boy named Ethan, and one night when he was 10 years old, his best friend was kidnapped out of their shared tent. And he moves back into his family's house and weird things start happening, and he, like, nobody ever found him or figured it out, so he's trying to figure it out. This book was heart-wrenching. I cried sad emotional tears reading this. Highly recommend. I gave this 4 stars. It is up there in the Riley Sagers for me. I just love his books, like the black with like the neon colors, such a vibe. And then the final book that I read was this big Mama Jamma. Oh my god, I forgot to go over the stats for the other months. Oh, why do I suck? Before we, I guess we'll just go over all the stats after I'm done, okay? We read The Nightingale by Plannahannah. This is the biggest book that I read, and this is about sisters. It literally doesn't even say their names on the back. Isabel and something with a V. Vianne. Isabel and Vianne, and it is about their lives, their 2 very different lives during World War II and the Holocaust and the Nazis and all of that situation. How one of them was trying to just follow the rules, one of them was trying to save lives, and it's like their story, and it is, everybody says this book is like sobbing. I teared up in the last 2 chapters, but otherwise I was completely fine, okay? I gave it 4 stars. This book has over like 1.5 million reviews and like a 4.4 rating. It is a beloved book. It is a good book. I hate history and historical type books. I was engaged. I read it. It wasn't written like you had to be smart to read it. 'Cause I'm not that smart when it comes to history. Like, it was written in a very like digestible way. And I would recommend it, especially to anybody who's like interested in World War II. But it's apparently going to be a movie, and I was looking it up, and it says something possibly about the Fanning sisters playing the sisters, and I think that would be like incredible casting. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I do want to read Firefly Lane by Plannahannah, but that's basically that. Now I'm currently reading the Ashley Poston book. So that's that. And before we say goodbye, let us just look at these stats, because apparently I suck. So for May, I read 11 books, and I read 3,690 pages. We read mainly mysterious, emotional, and dark books. The next highest categories were tense, funny, lighthearted, and hopeful. Have the graph right here. And then the least common were sad, reflective, and adventurous. And that was that. And then for June, I read 13 books, and I read 4,578 pages. Here's the graph. Most common, they're all tied actually, is tense, mysterious, lighthearted, funny, emotional, and dark. Then we have sad, and then tied in last is reflective, adventurous, and hopeful. That's basically that, you know? That is everything we read. Let me know if you guys have read these books, what you think about them. Some books I'm hoping to read here in the next like month or so is I do really want to read Expiration Dates, Final Girls, Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez, and the new Housemaid book, and horror movie. Those are like top of the list for me. I'm gonna go put all these books away, and I'll see you guys in the next one.